Welcome back to the Horizon interview. I'm Somna Sambo. Now, at least 152 buildings have collapsed in Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, since 2005, according to data collected by the University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. Late last year, a 21-story building, which was still under construction, crumbled, trapping dozens of site workers and others inside. Engineers have said the building was designed only for 6 floors before more floors were added to the structure. And earlier this month, a church collapsed in southern Delta State, killing at least 3 people. So what regulations around erecting buildings and structures exist in the country? And joining me from our Lagos studios, Eddy Atumonyogo, the president of the Building Collapse Prevention Guild. He was also the former president of the Nigerian Institution of Structural Engineers. Thank you so much, Eddy, for joining us. Let's talk about how the elite actually circumvent known building rules in the country, and many of them always seem to get away with it with very few prosecution. Do you think that the government is actually failing Nigerians in prosecuting people irrespective of their social status?
Well, I wouldn't really say that government is allowing people to get away with violations. Some of them just slip through the system. For every collapse that has happened, there has been an investigation, and reports are sent to the government, and it is left for the government to just punish offenders. Yes, people try to game the system, but government is there to ensure that people don't game the system. Because the problem we have is the problem of compliance with building laws, and it's a major problem in the building industry.
Okay. And let's take a look at the city of Lagos. Is it because of the soil texture that most buildings are collapsing in Lagos more than other parts of the country? Or you think that the Building Control Agency is not doing so much of its job? Or could it also be that some of these buildings are too old because of the colonial status of Lagos, and that's why there seem to be more collapses there?
Okay, there are a lot of causes of collapse in Lagos. Number one, Lagos is housing over 10% of Nigeria, so the sheer scale of buildings going on here is much. There was a research by our research department sometime in 2018. I found out that there were about 45,000 building construction going on in Lagos State. Out of that 45,000, only 20% were being supervised by professionals. So that will show you the sheer number of construction going on in Lagos State. Most states don't even have up to 10% of that. So, and then coupled with what you mentioned, the soil in Lagos is poor. Most parts of Lagos, there are some areas that have good soil, like other areas. Ikeja and the mainland, most of them have good soil. But when you come to the island, you have poor soil that requires specialist foundations, like you rightly pointed out.
Yeah. So, and if we may go into the issue of the Ikoyi building collapse, what's the update that a lot of Nigerians need to know, considering the panel that was set up, and what recommendations are you beginning to see that you can put in place to prevent such occurrence, and so that also we don't get trapped in these government talks that never ever get to happen?
Yes, a lot of panels were set up. Lagos State Governor, being a built environment professional, set up an inquiry, and that panel had concluded its report and submitted to the governor. And the governor set up a 3-man committee to look at it and come out with the recommendations. So we don't want to preempt what they will say. But also, the Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, COREN, also set up an independent panel that has done an extensive work, including soil investigation, design review of the building, a lot of work. And that work is still in progress. And I'm sure, towards the middle of February or so, that the committee will submit its report, and then we'll come out with the recommendations of how to prevent, building collapse.
And also, how soon do you think that we should quickly review the National Building Code? Do you think the National Assembly needs to do more and, give more strength to national legislation that prevent building collapse across the country, not just focusing on Lagos?
Yes, I believe they should do that. But, when we talk about the National Building Code, it's just one of several codes, because we can't just limit ourselves in Nigeria. The Euro Code is very, very popular. What most countries are doing right now is to adopt, especially in my own sector, which is engineering, design, and all that. They adopt the Euro Code, but they now develop the local annexes that will take into consideration the loadings that are peculiar to our nation. Things like the wind load, have to have a proper isoplot for Nigeria, hazard map, because some areas of Nigeria right now are having some earthquakes. So we need to develop, hazard maps for earthquakes, and then other, things that are peculiar to Nigeria. But it's important that the National Assembly passes that building code. It's like a general code that cuts across all the built environment professions in Nigeria. So it's like a base that we can also work with. But more work needs to be done in terms of code development in Nigeria. Right now, not much is being done. What we're using right now, even in engineering designs, are mostly British codes, Euro codes, but they have not really been adapted to suit our local conditions. We still depend on experience and the previous work that have been done, to use those codes. So more work needs to be done, and a lot of stakeholders need to get involved. The Standard Organization of Nigeria needs to be involved. The meteorological people need to be involved. We even heard there is a unit in the Ministry of Housing that is in charge of codes, and nobody has been hearing of them. I just got to hear about them recently. They need to come to the table. They need to come to the table. Let's know what they've been doing about codes in Nigeria. So people just leave these things hanging, and it's not good for our nation. It's not good for national honor. It's not good for the design community.
As we try to round off this conversation, most state governments actually require an environmental impact assessment report before building contractors actually start work. Do you think that these reports are actually being abused, or they are being forged, or the government doesn't enforce that requirement so much?
Well, it's not every development that requires an EIA. Yes, there are some developments you have to do, like estates developments and all that. You need to have an EIA report. Of course, in Nigeria, a lot of things are going on. People copy other people's EIA, and they just get approvals. Some others try to game the system and forge and get away with it. So we need a lot of compliance. Strict enforcement of laws governing building regulations in that regard.
Now, should criminal and civil proceedings be brought against developers of any housing that collapses? Any house that collapses, should the owners actually face criminal and civil proceedings? When a building collapses, a lot of things are involved. Lives are involved, lives are lost, economy is impacted. So because if you want to measure the economy of a nation, you look at the building industry. So the building industry is so huge and impactful in the economy that if there are violations, there should be stiff penalties. Currently in Lagos right now, there's a corona inquest. And when you talk about corona, you're talking about, people have died, and people have to get to the root of the matter and know what caused that collapse, who was responsible for that collapse, and they'll be punished. The law will be allowed to take its full course. All right, Eddy Atumonyogo, we must thank you so much for joining us on the show to take a look at this incidents of building collapse across Nigeria. Well, that has been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Samuel.